Book 21. If you watch all the way through, there's an Easter egg question, but you have to watch through this one and then book 22 to get the full question. And then you have to look it up and you have to send me the answer. The words are in here. You'll never know where. So you got to watch the whole thing and pay attention, guys. Okay, Penelope retrieves Odysseus's bow from the storeroom and the arrows and the implements for the contest. This includes axes or axe heads because Odysseus has to shoot pew, an arrow through 12 axe heads. I'll have a separate video on what that could mean, just so you can have a visual of it. She will marry whoever can string his bow. This is incredibly difficult. These bows are compound. Well, they're not compound bows, but they're wood that are flexible, but not that flexible. And in order to get the string, the probably sheep gut, dried sheep gut, tight enough to fire off the arrow, you have to bend this piece of wood down without snapping it with one hand and then use the other hand to put the string on the notch. It is incredibly difficult. Odysseus is the only one that was ever able to string his bow. So this is going to be a tough thing for the suitors, who are all weak bullies. And then through 12 axe heads. As I said, I'll have a separate video for that. Antinous is very excited. He thinks he'll be the one to win, but we know that he will die. As a matter of fact, Homer tells us in lines 91 through 97, right here, he says, so Antinous said, hoping in his heart that he would string the bow first and shoot an arrow through the iron. But the only arrow he would touch first would be the one shot into his throat from the hands of Odysseus, the man he himself was dishonoring while inciting his comrades to do the same. Yowza. That is, it's not going to end well for you, Antinous. You're about to get an arrow through the throat. Telemachus is first to try. Not that he wants to marry his mom or anything, but he wants to prove his manliness, to prove that he's the equal of his father. And after making that journey and growing up and talking with Athena, he's there. And he almost does it. He tries 3 times, and on the 4th, he was about to do it, but he eased off because he knew his dad wanted that moment of revenge, and it was all for Odysseus. And his dad gives him a little nod, like, "Yo, back off, son. That's my string to bow to string, so that I can kill these guys." So lines 126 says, 3 times he made it quiver as he strained to string it, and 3 times he eased off, although in his heart he yearned to draw that bow and shoot an arrow through the iron axe heads. And on the 4th try he would have succeeded in muscling the string onto its notch, but Odysseus reined him in, signaling him to stop with an upward nod. Sup. So Telemachus said for all to hear, "I guess I'm going to be a puny weakling forever." He's acting now. Before he was not, but now he's acting. "Or else I'm still too young and don't have the strength to defend myself against an enemy. But come on, all of you are stronger than me. Give the bow a try and let's settle this contest." Now other suitors try from left to right. They all fail, but we meet one of an interesting suitor. This guy's name is Leodes. He hates the way he is a suitor, but he hates the way the suitors are behaving in Odysseus's house and says they should all go home. Okay? Lines 157 through 170. He says, "Friends, I'm not the man to string this bow. Someone else can take it. I foresee it will rob many a young hero of the breath of life, and that will be just as well, since it is far better to die than live on and fall short of the goal. We gather herefore with high hopes day after day. You might hope in your heart, you might yearn to marry Penelope, the wife of Odysseus. But after you've tried this bow and seen what it's like, go woo some other Achaean woman and try to win with her with your gifts. And Penelope should just marry the highest bidder, the man who is fated to be her husband." Man, it was tough to be a woman back Ooh, 3,300 years ago. You have to marry the highest bidder. Kind of ridiculous, but that's the way it was. Just awful. Now, after these guys try, Antinous wants to kind of cheat. And that's what bullies are. They're really just cheaters, okay? They're totally dishonorable. He will warm the wood, and if you put wood in hot water for long enough, it will become very bendable. So he puts it by the fire. He's not putting it in hot water, but he puts it by the fire, and he uses lard, which is fat or grease from an animal, to make the bow more malleable or bendable or flexible. Who climbed? Easter egg question. Easter egg part of question number 1. Meanwhile, the cowherd Philotius and the swineherd Eumaeus leave the room because they figure, oh, we're out of here, these stupid suitors. But Odysseus grabs them as they're outside, right when they're outside, to reveal himself. Remember, this is called anagnoresis. And he asks them for their help. Lines 200 to 227. He says, Cowherd and swineherd, I've been wondering if I should tell you what I'm about to tell you now. Let me ask you this. What would you do if Odysseus suddenly showed up here out of the blue just like that? Would you side with the suitors or Odysseus? Tell me where you stand. And the cattle herder answers, Father Zeus, if only this would come true, let him come back, let some god guide him. Then you would see what these hands could do. And Eumaeus likewise to all the gods prayed that Odysseus would return. And Odysseus was sure of all these guys, and he says, I am back right here in front of you. After 20 hard years, I have returned to my home. I know that only you two of all my slaves truly want me back. I have heard none of the others pray for my return. So this is my promise to you. If a god beats these proud suitors down before me, I will give you each a wife, property, and a house built near mine. You shall be friends to me and brothers to Telemachus, and look, so that you can be sure of who I am, here's a clear sign, that scar from the wound I got from a boar's tusk when I went long ago to Parnassus with the sons of Autolycus. So he shows them the wound that Eurycleia found, and they all start crying and hugging, and oh my gosh, he's back, and he says, shh, and he lets him in on the plan. He tells him about what he's going to do. He asks Eumaeus to eventually bring him the bow so that he can try in disguise after all the other suitors have tried and failed. He tells Eumaeus to tell the women to lock the doors to the hall from the outside and not to open them for any reason. And the women are supposed to go upstairs to their rooms. And even if they hear screaming or men groaning or crying out, do not open those doors, he says, even if they hear the sounds of death. Now, remember, Eurymachus and Antinous are the two major suitors. They're big stinkerheads. Eurymachus tries and fails the bow. And he says, lines 251 to 262, Eurymachus was turning the bow over and over in his hands, warming it on this side and that by the fire, but even so he was unable to string it. His pride hurt, shoulders sagging, he groaned and then swore. Damn it! It's not just myself I'm sorry for, but for all of us, and not for the marriage either. That hurts. But there are plenty of other women. Some here in Ithaca, some in other cities. No, it's that we fall so short of Odysseus' godlike strength. We can't even string his bow. We'll be laughed at for generations to come. Which we are doing right now, right? We're laughing at Eurymachus and Antinous because they're such weakling, bully cowards. And, so there you have it. We're generations later, we're still laughing at these booger brains. Now, Odysseus, disguised as the beggar, asks for a try, and all the suitors mock him, okay? Lines 304 to 327. Says, you don't have an ounce of sense in you, you miserable tramp. Isn't it enough that we let you hang around with us undisturbed with a full share of the feast? You even get to listen to what we say, which no other stranger, much less a beggar, can do. It's wine that's screwing you up. They think he's drunk. as it does anyone who guzzle it down. It was wine that diluted the great centaur, and he talks about how the centaurs, of course, half horse, half men, and they're always getting drunk on wine. There's a lot of myth stories about these drunk centaurs. And he says, "You're going to get hurt too, stranger, I predict. Hurt badly if you string that bow. No one in all the land will show you any kindness. We'll send you off in a black ship to Echetus, who maims them all." This guy's hilarious. Echetus the Maimer. Maim means to cut off pieces of a person's body. So Echetus the Maimer, he's a king in a far-off land, and he maims people. Nose, ears, fingers, arms, feet, toes. Hoo-haws. It's kind of terrifying. You'll never get out alive, so just be quiet and keep on drinking, and don't challenge men who are younger than you are. Ooh, this is bad. You should not have said that, Antinous. That's bad. You're going to die a painful death. And Penelope speaks up and says to the suitors that she would never marry a beggar. She goes, "Let him try. I would never marry such an ugly old man." Does she know? This is kind of comedy. If you're sitting around the fire listening to this poem, and Penelope says, "I would never marry an ugly old beggar," they would all laugh because they know the ending. She is going to get with Odysseus because that's her lawful wedded husband. So she kind of eases the tension in the air. It's kind of funny. Now, at this point, Telemachus orders his mom and all the women to their rooms. Remember, he's the man of the house now, since Odysseus is not home, but of course he is. And Eumaeus brings the bow to Odysseus. The suitors are very angry with him, and they say, "Don't do it. Don't give that bow to him." But Telemachus orders Eumaeus to continue. Lines 394 to 400. Telemachus says to Eumaeus, "Keep going with the bow. You'll regret it if you try to obey everyone. I may be younger than you, but I'll chase you back into the country with a shower of stones. I am stronger than you. I wish I were strong when it came to the suitors. I'd throw more than one out of here in a sorry state. They're all up to no good." So, Eumaeus brings the bow to Odysseus. At this point, Eurycleia locks the women inside the upstairs room. Philodius locks the suitors in this feasting hall. Odysseus strings the bow effortlessly and is revealed to the suitors, and they are scared to death. They're terrified. Athena makes him look incredible, makes him grow, a foot in height, makes his muscles all strong, his back straight, his hair is going all over the place. He probably had one big eyebrow because that was very cool for the Greek males to have. And he fires the arrow through all 12 axe heads. I'm going to read it because it's amazing. This is the moment we've been waiting for, guys. Lines 418 and so on. He was handling the bow, turning it over and over and testing its flex to make sure that worms had not eaten the horn in its master's absence. The suitors glanced at each other and started to make sarcastic remarks. At this point, I will put in two more words for the question. The mountain. The mountain. Ha! A real connoisseur, an expert in bows. He must have one just like it in a case at home, which he does. That's his bow. Or plans to make one just like it, to judge by the way the masterful tramp keeps turning it in his hands. May he have as much success in life as he'll have in trying to string that bow. Now, whoever said this just prayed for their own death. May he have success in life, and right now he's focused on attacking the suitors. So, have success in stringing the bow that he'll have in life. So he strings the bow, then he's going to succeed in killing the suitors. This guy just prayed for his own death. What a fool. Thus said the suitors, while Odysseus, deep in thought, was looking over his bow, and then effortlessly, like a musician stretching a string over a new peg on his lyre, and making the twisted sheep gut fast at either end, Odysseus strung the great bow. You can imagine the silence in the hall at this point as they look at Odysseus. Lifting it up, he plucked the string. Ding! and it sang beautifully under his touch with a note like a swallow's. The suitors were aghast. The color drained from their faces, and Zeus thundered loud, showing his portents and cheering the heart of the long-enduring godlike Odysseus. One arrow lay bare on the table. The rest, which the suitors were about to taste, were still in the quiver. Odysseus picked up the arrow from the table and laid it upon the bridge of the bow, and still in his chair, drew the bowstring and the notched arrow back. He took aim and let fly, and the bronze-tipped arrow passed clean through the holes of all 12 axe heads from first to last. And he said to Telemachus, "Well, Telemachus, the guest in your hall has not disgraced you. I did not miss my target, nor did I take all day in stringing the bow. I still have my strength, and I'm not as the suitors make me out to be in their taunts and jeers. But now it is time to cook these men's supper. Well, it is still light outside, and after that we'll need some entertainment, music and song, the finishing touches for a perfect banquet." He spoke and lowered his brows. Telemachus, the true son of godlike Odysseus, slung on his sharp sword, seized his spear, and gleaming in bronze, took his place by his father's side. Beautiful. Be sure to watch the Book 22 video for the rest of the question. Easter egg question.